Welcome back to the newsroom. You're watching Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Shona Bhattacharya. Let's take a look at our top stories. Summoned to pay for his transgression, South African President Jacob Zuma is being ordered to pay 450,000 euros after he was found guilty of misusing state funds to make additions to his home. 2 people are dead and dozens wounded after Sunday's blast in Madagascar. The country was celebrating independence from France. No one has claimed responsibility, but the government blames political opponents. And the First Lady of the United States is in Liberia to promote girls' education. Michelle Obama also met with President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf as the West African country struggles to get back on its feet after years of war. Then Ebola. Putting a price on Jacob Zuma's transgression, South Africa's national treasury released a report ordering the president pay 7.8 million rand or 450,000 euros. Earlier this year, Zuma was found guilty of using state funds to make non-security related upgrades to his private residence. For more on this decision, we spoke to Aisha Ismail earlier in Cape Town.
Well, earlier this year, the Constitutional Court, which is the highest court in South Africa, found that Jacob Zuma had failed to uphold his oath of office when he did not follow through on a recommendation made by the public protector that he pay back a portion of the money used for renovations at his private Nkandla home. Now, the Constitutional Court gave the Treasury 2 months to come up with a figure. And the Treasury today came up with a figure of about 450,000 euros. This means that this matter will now go back to the Constitutional Court. The deadline is tomorrow. And after the Constitutional Court accepts the Treasury's recommendation of this amount, President Jacob Zuma will then be given 45 days to personally pay back the money.
Now, how is the reaction in South Africa to the decision to make the president pay?
Well, this is seen as a victory for opposition parties who took this matter to court, but it's much more than just the president paying back the money. This is about holding those in power and those in government responsible and to hold them accountable for their actions. It also shows that everybody is equal before the law and that nobody is above the law, including the President of the Republic of South Africa.
A deadly end to Independence Day celebrations in Madagascar. 2 people are dead and another 84 were wounded in an explosion Sunday evening. Revellers had gathered in the capital's Mahamasina stadium. The lapse had many outraged. Just last week, rumors of a possible attack had prompted security agents to address plans to secure the stadium. It's unclear who was responsible. The government, however, has blamed the attack on tensions with political opponents.
Blood has been spilled and people are placing the blame on the government, and we will not stand for that. Yes, it was the president, but it was also the people of Madagascar who were targeted. The independence celebration is a celebration for all the people of Madagascar. It is not a celebration for the president with other members of government. It is a celebration for all of Madagascar.
Accusing the police, Human Rights Watch has released a report blaming a former police unit director in the Central African Republic for several execution-style deaths. The rights group says Robert Yekwakete is directly implicated in at least 18 killings between April 2015 and March 2016. Victims' families are still grieving the loss of their loved ones. This father spoke to our correspondent in Bangui, Edouard Dropsy.
In the morning, my son was at home. He left with his wife to get coffee. He'd gone about 500 meters when he heard a shot. And when he went to see what had happened, he was stopped by Mr. Yekwakete. He's dead. He died. He was killed by Mr. Yekwakete. So now I want to press charges against Mr. Yekwakete, maybe even at the ICC. He killed a lot of innocent people.
The U.S.'s First Lady is in Liberia. Michelle Obama, her mother, and 2 daughters arrived in the coastal West African country as part of a 3-nation tour. Girls' education is the trip's central theme. Mrs. Obama also met with Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf as the country struggles to get back on its feet following the devastating Ebola epidemic. From Monrovia, here's France 24's Katerina Vitozzi.
The US First Lady met with Liberia's President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf shortly after arriving here in Liberia. They met in this building just behind me. Michelle Obama, along with her daughters and her mother, selected Liberia as the first country in their 3-country tour where they'll be promoting women's empowerment and girls' education. Over the past 5 years, the United States has provided more than $100 million worth of funding for basic education here in Liberia. And whilst enrolment levels, particularly amongst girls, have indeed increased, results are still some of the worst in the region, with 2 out of 3 girls graduating from primary school still unable to read and write. A little earlier, I spoke to Liberia's Minister for Gender, who said it took a community effort in order to close that gap.
The thing with girl education is educating the parents. It's from the community level. So you can open all of the schools, whether it's public, private, but how do you get the girls into those schools? So my program is to work from the community level, working with the community people, working with the parents to see the need to send the girls to school.
In Liberia, Michelle Obama will be visiting a US-funded women's empowerment program, as well as visiting a school to talk to Liberian teenage girls about their experiences. From here, it's on to Morocco, where the US First Lady will be chairing a women's empowerment forum.
Liberia's president gave an interview where she spoke about the region's biggest threats, with several armed groups wreaking havoc in West Africa. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf called for more international aid.
Resources to fight it is insufficient on the basis of ECOWAS' own capacity. The capability to do it, wherever a military response may be necessary. The United Nations is a place where support is coming from, and bilateral partners, key bilateral partners to either to countries or to the region as a whole. Very important for us to be able to have the means to respond to these threats.
Tunisia's ambassador to the UK pleaded tourists to come back on holiday a year after 30 Britons were killed in the most brutal attack in Tunisia's recent history. Tunis had a minute of silence on Sunday to remember all 38 victims who died when a gunman opened fire in the beach town of Sousse. The Islamic State group claimed responsibility for that attack. A year on, a state of emergency is still in place. It was extended for a 4th time this Monday.
In the Tunisian coastal resort of Yasmin Hammamet, the police are everywhere, even on the beach. 1 year ago, a terrorist attack killed 38 tourists on a beach in the town of Sousse. Now security checks have become the norm in an all-holiday hotspot. Hotels are anxious to show tourists Tunisia is a safe destination.
We used to attract tourists with sun and beaches. Now we have sun, beaches and security. It's becoming a selling point. We're spending a lot on security, and we try to show the efforts that our establishment and the state are doing in this regard.
The authorities are giving their all to restore the country's image. Tourism is vital for Tunisia's economy. The sector represents 7% of the GDP.
Ahead of the summer tourist season, we focused on 3 or 4 points, and the most important one is the security situation. Tourist attractions, restaurants, historical sites and hotels are inspected almost daily. We ensure that the new rules imposed by the government are respected.
Tunisia is turning to Eastern Europe to boost its struggling tourism industry. The government hopes to welcome 300,000 Russian tourists this year, 6 times the number in 2015.
That's it for this edition of Eye on Africa. More news coming up on France 24.